She was born into excess, wrapped in wealth before she learnt restraint. Amara Okoye grew up in the high-security estates of Ikoyi, Lagos, where generators hummed like lullabies and luxury cars replaced playground swings. At 23, she had never known denial. Her father, a self-made millionaire with interest in oil servicing and logistics, ensured her needs were met before she spoke them aloud. Yet, comfort bred defiance. Amara treated rules as inconveniences and advice as noise. She moved through Lagos nightlife with reckless confidence, switching boyfriends as casually as handbags, convinced that consequences were myths invented to frighten the weak. Night after night, Amara chased light, bass, and attention. Clubs on Victoria Island knew her face. Bartenders memorized her preferences. Men came and went. Bankers, influencers, foreign returnees, none lasting long enough to matter. She craved novelty, not stability, excitement over meaning. Her mother's early death had left a hollow she refused to examine, and her father's constant business travel gave her space to live unchecked. Lagos rewarded boldness, and Amara mistook indulgence for freedom, unaware that the city's glitter concealed sharp edges waiting for carelessness.
Her father, Chief Okoye, watched from a distance with growing unease. Phone calls ended in arguments, warnings dismissed with laughter. He funded her education, her apartment, her lifestyle, hoping maturity would arrive on its own. When an urgent meeting in the United States demanded his presence, he hesitated. Leaving Amara alone felt risky, but business waited for no man. He reminded her to be cautious, to avoid unnecessary travel, to stay grounded. She promised compliance with a smile that carried no intention of obedience. The very night his plane lifted off, Amara received the invitation that would alter everything. A message flashed on her phone from Zara, a friend cut from the same restless cloth. Abuja, a private party, influential guests, no limits. Amara felt the familiar thrill spark in her chest. Distance meant nothing to her. Adventure called louder than caution. She replied instantly, unaware that this decision marked the last moment of her life as she understood it. The warning came from the one voice Amara rarely tolerated. Ifunanya, her childhood friend, had taken a different path. While Amara chased nightclubs, Ifunanya chased purpose, anchoring her life in church, discipline, and quiet conviction. When she heard of the Abuja trip, she didn't hesitate. She called Amara repeatedly, her tone urgent, stripped of pleasantries. She spoke of rising insecurity on highways, of kidnappings, of dangers masked by invitations. She pleaded, not as a moral judge, but as someone who sensed approaching disaster. Amara listened with visible irritation, pacing her living room as the call continued. She accused the Funanya of exaggeration, of hiding behind religion to justify fear. Abuja was safe, she argued. People traveled every day. Besides, she needed this escape. She needed to feel alive. The conversation ended coldly, with Ifunanya's final words hanging heavy. A prayer offered through tears, a warning delivered with love. Amara rolled her eyes and silenced her phone, convinced concern was simply envy disguised as hate. Money complicated the plan. Flights to Abuja were easy, but booking one would alert her father through transaction alerts. She wanted secrecy, independence, proof she could move without his shadow. The bus was cheaper, untraceable, and immediate. Against better judgment, she chose the road. She packed lightly, dressing for a party rather than a journey through unpredictable terrain. In her mind, inconvenience equaled adventure, and risk only made stories better. At the park in Jibowu, Lagos, chaos reigned. Vendors shouted, engines roared, passengers argued over seats. Amara stood out, designer clothes among worn fabrics, perfume cutting through diesel fumes. She boarded the bus with impatience, settling near the window.
earbuds in place. As Lagos faded behind her, she felt triumph. She had outsmarted control, avoided scrutiny, chosen freedom. The highway stretched ahead, long and indifferent, carrying her toward a fate she could not imagine. The bus pushed north through the night, headlights slicing darkness, conversations fading into sleep. Amara watched unfamiliar towns blur past, comforted by the illusion of movement. Somewhere between Kogi and Niger states, the bus slowed. The driver muttered about a checkpoint that wasn't on the route. Before questions formed, armed men emerged from the shadows. Their faces were hard, their rifles steady. Panic rippled instantly. Others were backed in harsh tones. The doors were forced open. Time fractured into terror. Amara's heartbeat drowned all sound. Passengers were dragged out, belongings scattered, cries ignored. When rough hands pulled her down, reality struck with brutal clarity. This was not a robbery. This was something worse. She was shoved into the bush with others, thorns tearing her skin, fear stealing her breath. The bus drove away, abandoning them to men who moved with practiced control. The night swallowed their screams without sympathy. The captors separated the victims quickly. Amara was singled out, her accent, her clothes, her phone betraying her background. They bound her hands and pushed her deeper into the forest, where makeshift camps hid under trees. Hunger arrived fast. Water was rationed. Sleep was impossible. Every sound triggered dread. She tried to negotiate, to threaten with connections, but laughter answered her. Her wealth, once armor, had become her curse. Days blurred into suffering. She was beaten when she resisted, mocked when she cried. The men spoke of money with obsession, calculating her worth aloud. One morning, they filmed her with a phone, forcing her to plead. Her pride shattered completely as she begged for help, voice shaking, eyes hollow. That video traveled far, carrying her terror across oceans toward a father who had no idea his daughter was already broken. Chief Okoye received the call in a hotel room in Houston. The unfamiliar number, the cold voice, the demand delivered without ceremony. 500 million naira. Proof followed instantly. The video. Seeing Amara bruised, kneeling, begging, destroyed him. The world narrowed to that screen. Threats followed. Deadlines, instructions, warnings. He was told silence meant survival. Police involvement meant death. The line went dead, leaving him shaking in a foreign city, guilt clawing his chest. He abandoned the meeting and booked the earliest flight back to Nigeria. The weeks that followed were torture measured in hours. Negotiations dragged, amounts debated, deadlines shifted. He sold assets, moved funds, swallowed pride. Sleep deserted him. Every ring of his phone threatened finality. He blamed himself relentlessly for absence, for indulgence, for ignoring signs. Money had given him power everywhere except where it mattered most. Meanwhile, Amara endured systematic cruelty. Food was withheld to force compliance. She was relocated constantly, marched through harsh terrain until her feet bled. The kidnappers reminded her daily that her life depended on payment. Nights were the worst. Fear thick as darkness, her mind replaying Ifunanya's warning on an endless loop. For the first time, she prayed, not with confidence, but desperation, clinging to fragments of belief she had once mocked. When the final instruction came, it was precise. The ransom would be delivered to a remote bush in Borno State. Alone, no police. Any deviation would be fatal. Chief Okoye agreed outwardly, but inwardly made a different decision. He contacted trusted senior officers within the Nigerian police force, men bound by discretion and urgency. He chose risk over helpless obedience, determined that this nightmare would not end in blood. The journey to Borno was tense, shrouded in secrecy. Police strategists mapped terrain, studied patterns, prepared for betrayal. Chief Okoye traveled under guard, though unseen, carrying the weight of a father's fear heavier than the cash itself. The kidnappers maintained contact, monitoring movements, issuing threats. Every mile closer tightened the noose around everyone involved. One misstep would end everything. At the drop point, the bush was silent, oppressive. Chief Okoye arrived alone as instructed, placing the bags where told. His hands trembled, but he did not falter. Hidden nearby, police units waited, hearts racing, fingers ready. Minutes stretched unbearably. Then figures emerged from the trees, armed, alert, suspicious. They inspected the money, arguing among themselves, unaware that eyes tracked their every move. As the signal was given, chaos erupted. Shouts split the air. Police surged forward. Gunfire echoed briefly before overwhelming force ended resistance. Some kidnappers fled, others were subdued. Within moments, the camp was secured. Officers moved swiftly, following intelligence to the location where Amara was held. Each step carried hope and dread in equal measure. They found her in a crude enclosure, weak, filthy, barely conscious. When her eyes opened and she saw her father, something inside her collapsed completely. She cried without restraint, sobs tearing through her emaciated body. Chief Okoye held her tightly, apologizing over and over, his own tears soaking her hair. Rescue had come, but the cost was carved into both their souls permanently. Recovery was slow and painful. Amara spent weeks in a private hospital, monitored constantly, her body healing faster than her mind. Nightmares haunted her sleep. Sudden sounds sent her into panic. She spoke little, reflecting deeply. The world she returned to felt foreign, stripped of illusion. When strength returned enough for conversation, she asked for her father, her voice quiet, changed. Their conversation was raw and unguarded. Amara confessed everything: her recklessness, her lies, her arrogance. She apologized with sincerity that left no doubt. She acknowledged the warning she ignored, the pride that blinded her. Chief Okoye listened. No anger left in him, only relief and love. He forgave her without conditions, grateful simply to have her alive. News of the arrest spread quietly, handled with discretion. The kidnappers faced justice. Yet for Amara, punishment elsewhere did not erase her internal reckoning. She asked to see Ifunanya. When they met, words were unnecessary. Amara wept openly, thanking her for caring enough to warn her. Ifunanya embraced her, offering no lectures, only presence. As strength returned, Amara made deliberate changes. She left her apartment, moved closer to family, cut ties with harmful influences. Nightlife lost its appeal. Silence became preferable to noise. She began attending church with Ifunanya, sitting quietly at first, absorbing messages she once dismissed. Each service stitched something back together, slowly, deliberately. Transformation was not instant, but it was real. Amara confronted herself daily, resisting old habits with conscious effort. She sought counseling, committed to discipline, redefined friendship. Where attention once fueled her, purpose now anchored her. She volunteered quietly, avoiding publicity, finding healing in service. Lagos still pulsed with temptation, but she learned to navigate it with restraint. Her relationship with her father deepened profoundly. Conversations became honest, unfiltered. He reduced his travels, valuing presence over profit. Together, they rebuilt trust through consistency rather than promises. Amara took interest in the family business, not for luxury, but responsibility. She learned the weight of decisions and the fragility of safety. Church became more than routine. it became refuge. Teachings on humility, obedience, and grace resonated deeply. She recognized herself in every warning once ignored. Faith no longer felt restrictive, but protective. She understood now that freedom without wisdom was simply exposure to danger. The change was visible, undeniable. People whispered, speculated, doubted. Some called it temporary, trauma-driven. Amara did not argue. She allowed time to speak. Her actions replaced explanations. Each day lived differently was proof enough that the girl who boarded that bus no longer existed. Years later, the memory remained sharp, but it no longer controlled her. Amara spoke occasionally, privately, to young women walking paths she once glorified. She told the truth without embellishment, describing consequences without romance. Her story carried authority because it was lived. Some listened, some didn't. She understood now that choice was sacred and warning was an act of love. Ifunanya remained her closest friend, their bond forged through pain and grace. Together, they built initiatives supporting victims of violence, funded quietly through Chief Okoye's resources. Wealth, once a symbol of excess, became a tool for restoration. Purpose replaced indulgence completely. On a quiet Sunday in Lagos, Amara stood beside her father in church, singing softly, tears slipping freely. Gratitude outweighed regret. Survival had given her clarity. Loss had taught her value. She was no longer defined by rebellion, but by resilience. The road that nearly destroyed her had redirected her entirely. What began as defiance ended in humility. What was taken from her was replaced with something deeper. And in that transformation, Amara finally understood that listening, truly listening, could be the difference between life lost and life redeemed.
Subscribe, like, comment, and share.